This is the Conservative American Message, hosted by the one and only Cam Lau. It is Monday, March 18th, 2024, and you are listening to the 65th episode of this podcast. Richard Nixon said, "A man is not finished when he is defeated. He is finished when he quits." We are exactly 232 days from the election in November. The Republican frontrunner is currently engaged in 4 separate legal battles. I've heard many conservatives saying that there's no way that Trump could have been charged so many times and not be guilty of at least something. But look at who we're dealing with here. These elitists have not stopped going after him since the moment he came down the escalator in Trump Tower. Let's walk through each individual case so you can understand how ridiculous each case actually is. He previously lost a trial involving defrauding a bank for financing his real estate projects. The trial really came down to the valuation of all of Trump's assets at the time, which included Mar-a-Lago. Just looking at Mar-a-Lago alone, the 18-acre property, along with the massive palace that sits on top of it, was valued by the court at something like $18 million. Meanwhile, the average price for a quarter of an acre lot within a square mile of Mar-a-Lago is likely over $15 million. Not to mention, Trump has already paid back all of these loans, and they were taken out decades ago. The bank actually testified on the behalf of the former president. But of course, none of that matters to you when you're a liberal DA or liberal judge in New York conspiring against Trump. It's likely that Trump's lawyers will be repealing this decision. As far as the ongoing trials, the most ridiculous of all is the alleged hush money that Trump supposedly gave to porn star Stormy Daniels to keep her quiet about their affair. Trump disputes all of these claims, and further, there is very little evidence to support any of it. This case is also being brought against him in New York, but the outcome may not be decided till after the election. In Florida, he's being charged in relation to classified documents being discovered in his private residence after Biden sent the FBI to raid his home. The trial has yet to even officially begin, and is being long delayed since similar documents were found in Biden's possession. But in that case, the judge ruled that Biden was too incompetent to stand trial. In Georgia, Trump is charged with interfering with the 2020 election simply for questioning the results and requesting a recount. The trial hasn't even started yet, and the district attorney and the special prosecutor have already been exposed for having a romantic relationship. The special prosecutor is now being investigated by the White House Judiciary Committee. And last but not least, there is a federal election interference case in D.C. Trump's lawyers have already filed with the Supreme Court, making the case that, as the former president, he has immunity from these federal charges. The trial will not proceed until the Supreme Court hands down its decision in the matter. The trials will not have any impact on Trump's chances of being elected, and it's extremely unlikely that any of the charges are going to stick, especially after Trump reassumes office. Well, I told you guys I was going to be having t-shirts very soon, and I'm still planning to do that. I've been working on it and trying to find better suppliers. The one I ordered through recently, I wasn't happy with the design or the quality of the shirt, so I'm holding off for now until I find something better, but keep an eye out because that's coming very soon, maybe within the next week. Fairfax County in Virginia is probably the most liberal school district in the country. Every month we hear of a new controversy coming out of their schools. The most recent event involved a Holocaust survivor coming to speak to a class of 7th graders. This powerful testimony is much needed in our increasingly anti-Semitic world. But the school allowed students to opt out of that lesson because it might be hard for them to listen to. They claim they were giving this option for the benefit of Jewish students who may have a hard time with the subject. But I think they're a lot more concerned with allowing the anti-Semitic pro-Palestinian kids to continue to live in their fantasy world where Jews happen to be the oppressors. It might seem like these crazy liberal teachers and school boards are in a far away and urban place. That would never happen in your rural town, would it? Well, think again. In my small northern Iowa town, I graduated in a class of just under 70 students, and I had a social studies teacher my junior year in a class called American History. When we reached the unit of our World War II studies that was about the Holocaust, she made the personal decision, all on her own, that she was just going to skip that lesson because she assumed we all got the gist of the Holocaust at this point. I mean, we're juniors in high school, right? I straight up called her a Nazi to her face, getting me sent to the principal's office. But lo and behold, only a few years later, and other kids that were in that same class with me are posting anti-Israel propaganda on their own Instagram stories. Clearly, the lesson was much more needed than this teacher thought. Moral of the story, guys, get your kids out of these public schools. Do not send your kids to a public school, regardless of how good you think that school might be, and how good the teachers are, how good your school board is. It doesn't matter. These schools are run by the Department of Education and by the teachers' unions. And if it's not a possibility for you to make such a drastic change like that, at the bare minimum, you need to ensure that your kids are being told the truth at home. Well, that's all I have time for. Were you offended by this podcast? Good. Thanks for listening, guys. I really appreciate you all. Have a great week and stay conservative.